recording our presentation here. We will be sharing this on our YouTube page, which I get it uploaded probably over this weekend. Welcome to the September Ozark Fly Fishers Zoom meeting. Got our schedule for tonight coming up here. Just as a reminder, everyone, you are muted. If you have a question, please use the raise your hand function. It's under reactions at the bottom of your screen. Or you can just wave at the camera. Or if we're really ignoring you, you can go off mute and kind of chime in. Everyone should be muted right now. We're going to get started here in just a minute. So I'm going to leave it to Dan now. And Dan, you're on mute. There you go.
All right, welcome, folks. A little bit different again with our Zoom meeting here. We have here. It worked out fairly well last time, so we're continuing. Do we have any new members joining us today? Okay, how about any visitors? Okay, I don't hear anybody reacting, so has anybody got any fishing reports you'd like to give? Okay, I guess not. Director of Education. You there, Jim? I don't see Jim. Conservation, Scott, you there? Don't see Scott. Treasury report, Steve? We don't have many directors here. Nobody's here. Okay, membership report. I don't see that either. Jerry? Jerry? You're on mute.
How's that? Is that better?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I have nothing to report, obviously, because we are not able to meet at our regular meeting place. Therefore, I have no raffles to do. So not much going on. So that's all I have right now.
Thank you, Jerry. I don't see Ed out there for outings. I would like to make a small announcement. I was down at Westover Farms, and they are willing to let us fish there for one day. So we may have an outing at Westover, probably middle week, sometime in October. That's still being put together, but I think they can do that. Next thing to do is upcoming speakers. And Mike Swiderski, I think you have things going on as far as some of the programs you're going to do. Am I correct about that, Mike?
Yeah, actually it's Al has this going on. I'm just a part of his committee along with Steve Antonik. We were supposed to meet tonight, but it interfered with your meeting. So I'm sure Al will have something to report.
Watch for the upcoming newsletter and you'll get more information.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Dan, real quick to go back to the upcoming topics. We did send out that survey and we got some really good results. A lot of people participated in that. So Al has the results for that, and we'll coordinate to get future topics for these.
Yeah, we're kind of in a newsletter kind of mode right now. What we're doing, that in the fly tires meetings. All right, guys. Announcing
hey,
tonight.
Dan.
Yes.
Oh, Dan, I am an officer.
Okay, Steve.
Want to make sure everybody knows that, there is no catch and release meeting. If you want to do it, you're on your own. That's the most important thing. All FFF things have been canceled for next week. It will not happen down in Arkansas. So just want to make sure everybody knows. The other group that kind of is with us, the Missouri Fly Fishermen's Association, they are having their meeting next Friday and Saturday, and that's in Branson. Just mention it in case anybody's, it's what usually happens in July, but it got put off till October. It's not the same kind of event, but they are gathering there at the same place they always go. If you need any information, you can get a hold of Mike Sidurska or myself, and we'll let you know, or they do have a website. That's it.
Thank you, Steve. Steve Garnett, how's the roster looking for our officers?
Well, if you'd like an official report, we have the officers are re-upping for next year. It's president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and past president. As far as the board of directors, the Jim Gare with education is staying on. Al Borisaw membership is staying on. Scott Darrow conservation is staying on. Jacob Voss communications is staying on. And the two outgoing members or directors who are going to be Ed Olander for outings and Jerry Knietman from Ways and Means. And we've been trying to contact members to fill the slots. Haven't had any luck with that yet. Jake, did you get my email about getting a blurb? There's out to the members.
That doesn't ring a bell. It might just be in the club inbox somewhere. I will look, and if I don't find it, I'll send you an email and ask for it.
Okay. Basically what it is just a request for anybody who knows of someone or personally themselves, if they'd like to volunteer for a board position. And then also for, I don't know what you call these positions, but maybe committees, but we have webmaster, fly casting, fly tying, FFI tying award evaluator, group IO moderator, video librarian, and stream team coordinator. Everybody's staying on. So the two positions we do have to fill are outings and Ways and Means. And I don't believe we call for nominations from the floor until the last two meetings of the year. But basically, if anybody knows of anyone, if anybody themselves would like to volunteer, please drop me a line.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Okay, continuing on. After a flurry of emails back and forth, coordinating schedules, and a change of venue, and finally a format agreeable to everyone, it is my honor to announce the Director of Missouri Conservation, Sara Parker Pauley, to address our club tonight. She serves as the 9th director of the Missouri Department of Conservation since its foundation in 1937. The Missouri Conservation announced Pauley's election effective November 1st, 2016. She's a native of Columbia, and she received both her law degree and bachelor's degree in journalism from the University of Missouri, Columbia, or Mizzou as we call it, and did postgraduate studies in Australia as a Rotary Fellow. She previously served as a director of the Missouri Department of Natural Resources since 2010. She has worked as a project manager for DJ Case and Associates, a natural resources communication firm, and as a deputy director for the Missouri Department of Natural Resources. She has been an instructor at the University of Missouri School of Natural Resources, teaching a course in natural resource policy and administration. I give you Ms. Pauley.
Thanks, Dan, and everybody. Can you hear me okay? Dan, give me a thumbs up. I can see you if, excellent. So probably just like you, I'm trying to get used to this virtual world. And I think for my third virtual evening event this week. So it's a little bit more familiar, but we'll do we'll do our best. I think I'm going to talk for a while and then open it up to any questions. But if a question comes up while I'm talking, please don't hesitate. Just interrupt me and throw out your question. I can't really see the chat function, so you might just have to call out and tell me that you got a question. It's my pleasure to be with you all. I think I was before you all. It's been probably a few years now, and actually got to see you in person. But I'm glad that at least this virtual opportunity came together. I'm not exactly sure what you all have questions about, so I might just talk a little bit about things that are going on at the department. And still a lot is happening. Jake asked about the implications or the impacts from COVID to the department. And I mentioned to him that for the most part, we have been able to continue on working. Some of our folks have gone into teleworking capacity. Many of our field folks, quite honestly, probably prefer fewer meetings and more time in the field. I told Jake the story that I visited with one of my foresters probably back in April, and I said, how are you doing? Are you hanging in there? And the office at that time was shut down, and he said, in all honesty, I'm an introvert anyway, so you told me to go spend more time in the field, less meetings, I'm in heaven. And so I think a lot of our field folks probably feel that way, but we're really letting local health conditions dictate for our regional leadership how they want to approach reopening. And so you might note we always keep the most up-to-date information on our website, but kind of depending on local conditions, some parts of the agency might have facilities shut down, other parts open. And so really depending on those local conditions. But what we have seen, and I'm sure you guys understand this, guys and gals, that with the shutdown and with the closure of restaurants and other things, with the closure of a lot of businesses, people flocked to the out of doors. I mean, crazy flocking to the out of doors. Many first timers. I mean, we have people that have purchased fishing licenses for the very first time. First time with the spring turkey permit as well. And trout parks, as you know, if you've been, trout parks were crazy crowded. And so that's a really, really good thing that in this time of turmoil and unrest, that people are finding a connection in the out of doors. There's some parts to it that have provided a little stress to our staff when parking lots are so full and counties, can't get through, county vehicles can't get through because we're closing off roads. We've had a few issues like that, had a few issues with privies being a bit of a disaster. And so there's always impacts to too many people flocking, but I think we really have to take note of, and it's not just Missouri, it is nationwide, that all of my colleagues around the country are noting the same thing. Fishing licenses way up, hunting licenses way up, their facilities, their areas being used, many by people for the first time. And so that's very gratifying to know in such times that people return to or go to nature for that sort of connection. We're trying to take advantage of that. If you've been to Bass Pro or Cabela's or any sporting goods store, you know that it's hard to find fishing equipment or boats or kayaks or, people are buying a lot of those types of supplies out, which is good news for the retailers. But it also, you know, sends an interesting message that the outdoors are certainly open. In a time of closure, the outdoors are open. Now, there were other states and some surrounding states where during kind of the height of COVID concerns, governors shut down their borders to travelers, or to, in some cases, as directly as hunters. Anybody else can come through, but if you're coming to hunt, you can't come. And that was not the direction our commission wanted to go. And in fact, you may remember that for a period of time, our commission actually waived fishing licenses. And we've heard from a lot of other, you know, a lot of folks that they appreciated the opportunity to not have to worry about a fishing license, so they could just get outdoors, be with their families and be outside. So it's been a very, very interesting time for the department. And I have to say, though, that it is just very consoling to me that so many people have flocked to nature during this period of time. And we're looking at ways to make sure that we keep them engaged with our great outdoors. I think Dan had mentioned, hey, can you mention the difference between Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Conservation? And I'll mention that briefly. Some on the phone may know that recognition or the distinction. Every state is different in how it manages natural resources, fish and wildlife, environmental aspects, state parks. Our Iowa to the north has kind of one mega agency. Arkansas to the south has multiple agencies. We really have two departments in Missouri that kind of encompass most of our natural resource protection. And so DNR, where I served as director for 6 years, has the state environmental functions, like the state EPA that does clean water, clean air, hazardous waste, etc. They also have the state parks, so the trout parks. It's a partnership with Department of Conservation, but ultimately it is DNR State Parks that has ownership of those of the state parks. They also have the Division of Energy, the Geological Survey, etc. And then Department of Conservation, Forest, Fish, and Wildlife. We have been around since the 1930s. DNR has really been around since the 1970s. So during that Reorganization Act in the 1970s, it brought together different functions that have been around for a lot longer. State Parks has been around since the 19-teens, Geological Survey since the 1880s. So a little bit different there. When I was at DNR, I was an appointee of the governor. Now at Department of Conservation, I am hired by a 4-member commission. That commission, thanks to the citizens of Missouri in the 1930s, when fish and wildlife and forestry management had become so politicized, that the citizens really through initiative petition established an independent commission to be nonpartisan, no more than 2 of my commissioners from any particular party. And they have the authority to set fish and wildlife regulations. Then in the 1970s, citizens again to the 1/8 of 1 cent sales tax, so wanting to provide dedicated funding for purposes of funding the department. So it is a little different. I report to a 4-member commission now rather than the governor, though I am still considered a part of the governor's cabinet. And of the 16 state agencies, I think there are maybe 4 agencies that are commission, where the directors report to a commission. So a little history perhaps for you there. We have been working on and finalized a strategic plan now. We finalized it more than a year ago. It was important for us to really, with finite resources and a lot of new things appearing, for us to take care of, and I'll talk a little bit about feral hogs and additional responsibilities, but we thought it very important to make sure that we all agreed on the priorities. So we finalized a strategic plan more than a year ago, and everything is now aligned to that strategic plan, including our organizational structure. And so we did just go through a new reorganization, and there's some components to that that might be of interest to this particular group. But goal 1 is all about taking care of nature and our responsibility to take care of nature. So a few things under that goal that I'll mention. I hope that most on our call are aware of our very first modern day elk season, the inaugural elk season that will take place this fall. And 5 lucky permit holders now, one who has a landowner permit, the other 4 have general permits. And it was so fun. I had the ability to talk to them and let at least 4 of the 5 know that they were the winners. And I'm not sure they believe me. And one had to call me back just to confirm. But I know they are excited about the opportunity to go out. They'll have 2 different seasons that they can participate in. The first one is in October for archery, and then again in December for firearms season. And so very exciting to be part of that history. Elk restoration really has been in play for the better part of the last decade. And so I feel like the person who gets to kind of come in at the end when the cake has been baked and the icing on and celebrate, because a lot of folks put a lot of hard work into the elk restoration efforts. Some of you that follow commission action may be aware that at the last commission meeting, our commission approved a modern bear season as well. We've seen growing bear numbers in southern Missouri. Most of the bear population is south of I-40. We believe that the estimate of the population in Missouri is between 540 and 840, but it's really part of a larger bear population that goes into Arkansas and Oklahoma. And so with the bear season framework now in place, the commission will have the ability as soon as next year to establish a quota for those who may want to participate in a bear season. If you're a birder, you may have heard the news that in the spirit of restoration, that year 1 is underway for restoring the brown-headed nuthatch, which is a cute little bird found in our pine woodlands. And as we've restored shortleaf pine, mostly in the Mark Twain National Forest, we've had the opportunity to work with Arkansas and transfer some of their cute little nuthatches to the Mark Twain. And so that restoration effort is underway as well. As we take care of nature, a critter that we don't necessarily want on the landscape is the infamous feral hog. And so a lot of political noise around the feral hog. We began to see numbers of feral hogs growing. We began to see people releasing them more and more about 20 years ago, and wish we had probably done more to stop that effort at the time, but the past is what it is. But really began to see a lot of destruction, both on public land and private land, natural resource destruction, habitat destruction. And with it, feral hogs, a carrier of a host of diseases. The latest research suggests they're even carriers of chronic wasting disease. And as we talk to our other southern states like Texas and Oklahoma and other southern states, they said, if you don't get a handle on it now, then you never will. Texas has long said we will never see the end of feral hogs. And so we have been really focused on, with a partnership, we're part of a feral hog elimination partnership where we partner with Mark Twain National Forest, with USDA Wildlife Services, with Department of Agriculture, with Missouri Farm Bureau, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, DNR State Parks, a number of other partners in trying to really eradicate feral hogs from the landscape. There are a lot of folks who like to hunt them with dogs, and not very happy that we're trying to get rid of them. But as we see the destruction, $1.5 billion on an annual level of destruction that feral hogs cause, we really got to focus now to make sure that that they don't continue to expand in population in Missouri. And so that has been a focus of ours as well. Under goal 2 is connecting people with nature. And we obviously have a responsibility to take care of nature, but equally important is making sure that we're providing opportunities for you to connect with nature. And so a lot of examples here. One is just, we have over 1,000 conservation areas, about 1 million acres that we own and or manage. And so we've been very focused on a plan to take care of the infrastructure that we have. That includes our hatcheries. Our hatcheries are, as you can imagine, big dollar items for us and tend to break down on occasion. And so we have been working on a huge renovation plan at Roaring River State Park at our hatchery in the spring, and the raceways there. Unfortunately, weather has slowed that project down, but we are very close to seeing that project complete. New flood control structures in place, new pipes in place. We are hoping really within the next month or two to have the Roaring River Hatchery project completed just in time to, quite honestly, look at Bennett Spring. Bennett Spring is in significant need of some major work. And so as you can imagine, that whole hatchery, all of our hatcheries are one system. And so when one hatchery is down, we work in raising more fish at the other hatcheries. Our concern has always been, what if more than one hatchery is down at a time? And there have been a few times where we're holding our breath with flooding or with other things, but we're hoping to get the Roaring River Hatchery completed, and then already scoping work is beginning on Bennett. And that is going to be a multi-year effort, but important to take care of the infrastructure we have so that we can provide opportunities for the folks who enjoy those trout parks. Always looking at technology and how we can benefit our anglers and hunters and hikers and folks who love the outdoors just through technology. And so we have a new app, the Mo Outdoors app, that just tells you what you can do at any conservation area, working with state parks and with Division of Tourism on how to just make all public areas more accessible. I think most of you may be familiar with our Mo Hunting app, Mo Fishing app, but always looking at how to use technology to connect people more with nature. One of the new positions in the new reorganization are recreational use specialists in each of our 8 regions. These are brand new positions. And the role of the recreational use specialist is to really connect with people in that region to find out what you want, what you need, and to make connections with our existing public portfolio and or even private opportunities too. But we've never really had that sort of capacity where we are saying, what is it that is wanted in this particular region, and can we bring that to our citizens? And so we're excited about that new capacity. We can talk about relevancy too. We have a new unit called that's focused on relevancy, which is really making connections with newer audiences, with people who may be more in the urban areas or just not as familiar with the opportunities we provide. And so how do we connect with newer audiences? Finally, goal 3 is just maintaining the public trust. A big one for that, and I did talk about infrastructure, but I think a big one for us in that regard is just inventorying all of the infrastructure we have, getting a game plan for how do we maintain this into the future. When the Design for Conservation was first passed in the 1970s, those were the days where we had the funding and we began to build. We built nature centers and stream accesses and boat ramps and hiking trails and a lot of that. And so now, 40 years later, a big focus for us is just making sure that we are maintaining the infrastructure that we have and making sure that we can maintain it into the future. But we're continuing to spend a lot of time on surveying our citizenry. We send out about 200,000 surveys a year, from duck hunters to deer hunters, turkey hunters, anglers. asking your opinion about the department, about regulations, a host of different issues. We have something called the Conservation Monitor now, where on a quarterly basis, we're engaging a panel of different citizens from different parts of the state to ask opinions on programs and services. So staying connected with our citizenry is very, very important to us and will continue to be in the future. So those are a few things, Dan, that I might mention. I know you guys probably have a few questions to ask, but let me stop there and see what's on your mind.
Yeah, I will bring the slide deck back up here and share it for everybody. Just a moment, bear with me here.
I'd like to take a moment to thank Rhonda for her help in arranging this. And Ben Havens, who said, yeah, go ahead and get Sarah on. She'll do it. So it was a good inspiration there too. So
Good.
All right.
I have a question about the rough grouse. Do you anticipate that, or could you talk maybe about that program? Is that going to expand and eventually have huntable rough grouse?
So, Leo, you're speaking to another restoration effort that has been underway with the state of Wisconsin, where we are working with a consortium of landowners in the River Hills area that have agreed to maintain that early successional habitat that is so necessary for ruffed grouse. So we have completed 2 of 3 years of the transfer of ruffed grouse from Wisconsin into Missouri. And we are hearing that so far, so good. We have made attempts at ruffed grouse restoration in the past, quite honestly, not very successfully. And so I think and I hope and I pray what is going to make this different is that we are talking about a larger area and commitment of many landowners. And so we are hearing that folks are seeing grouse, they're hearing grouse. We'll have 1 more year. COVID kind of kept us from completing year 3, but the intention is in 2021 to complete that last year of transfer. And then fingers crossed that we can maintain the habitat and that our grouse population begins to expand. This has been tried several times. And so in all honesty, this is probably our last attempt. And so fingers crossed and good wishes for our ruffed grouse there. But it is hopefully going to be another example of a successful restoration effort.
All right, guys. So we do have the questions that our members submitted through the website. We'll go through those first on the PowerPoint slide, and then if we have some time at the end, we can switch back and do some open floor Q&A. But right now, I will go to our PowerPoint slide again real quick. Let me make sure I bring up the right one. All right, do you guys all see the Sarah's bio on the screen? All right. So our first question is from Steve Garnett. How much time did you spend in Australia and what did you do there and where did you visit?
Well, that's a fun question. Thanks, Steve. I was a Rotary Fellow. It's going to be a few years ago. It was in 1988. So I just finished my undergraduate degree, took a few years off before I started law school, and did graduate work at the University of Sydney, or Sydney University, and got to do some fun coursework. But there were 3 other Americans over there at the same time, all of us on the same program. And so we did a lot of traveling too, to the second part of your question, and did about 12,000 kilometers up and down the coast and into the outback, and did not get to Perth. I'm sad about that. So hope to someday get back to the western end, but certainly got to see a lot of Australia. Beautiful country, and if you've not been there, it's worth the trip.
All right. This one's from our president, Dan. What other states have trout parks?
Boy, that is a great question, and I'm not sure that I know the answer to that. Not in the same way that we have trout parks here, which is this partnership, as I mentioned, between DNR state parks and the Department of Conservation, where through the hatcheries we raise the fish, and but it's part of a larger park. Some in the crowd, some of your membership may know that, but you know, of my colleagues around the country, I'm not sure that I've heard of others talk about a trout park quite the way that Missouri has it. If somebody knows of an example, I'd love to hear it. And I'll have to ask other colleagues about that if they have anything similar to that.
Okay. This one's from Tom Fassel. Catch and release trout fishing has increased in popularity as the sport of fly fishing has grown. Is there any possibility that specific catch and release areas will be designated in all of Missouri's trout parks in the near future?
Tom, that is a great question, and I'm going to capture this one too. We have not, in fisheries, we have not talked about an expansion of catch and release areas at the moment, but this to me is an example where our recreational use specialists, and they report up to a recreational use manager, is going to be doing a much more targeted job of asking specific questions on, you know, what would you like to see in your conservation areas, in the trout parks? What is the interest or desire out there? And, you know, can we make that happen? So this is the first time that I've heard of at least the interest in additional catch and release areas, but I'll certainly take it back, and I would encourage you all too, so part of the reorganization was establishing regional administrators in each of our 8 regions. So in the St. Louis area, you have a regional administrator, Julie Stone in St. Louis, and Kansas City in each of the 8 regions. And the recreational use specialists then report up to those regional administrators. So those are probably some good contacts for this particular organization to get to know the recreational use specialist in your region, in your area. And this is the type of input that they are going to be looking for as we move forward. But I'll take this one back also to our team.
All right. This one is from me. Where's your favorite spot to fish in Missouri? And where's your favorite non-fishing spot in the state?
Boy, maybe some of that I don't want to tell you.
I figured, yeah.
You know, my family just got back from the North Fork of the White, and of course that's such a beautiful area, beautiful spot. My favorite stream to float and fish is Bryant Creek. My parents are both from southern Missouri, southwestern Missouri, and I just love that Bryant Creek area. I grew up floating on Ozark streams, but I ended up marrying a professional bass fisherman who only fishes lakes. And so we've had to come to a meeting in the middle where I've had to learn how to fish lakes and he's had to float more streams. But, you know, I'd have to say Bryant Creek if I had to pick just a favorite stream to float and fish. And then my favorite non-fishing area in the state, I tell you, I've got favorite turkey hunting areas. I've got favorite deer hunting areas. I love that Irish wilderness area for hiking. So I'm going to have to say it depends on what my activity is, what I'm up to really define non-fishing area.
All right.
On the time of year too. That one's too, I don't like that question. It's difficult.
Sorry, it was broad. I'm sorry. This one comes from Jeff Cohen. How often are trophy trout streams like the Little Piney Creek restocked? Which ones are stocked with not just rainbows, but also browns? And will other species such as the cutthroat ever be introduced?
So I cannot imagine a scenario in which the cutthroat would ever be introduced. I have to say, I cannot imagine it. But we do have a stocking schedule. And I'm not sure, I gotta be honest, I'm not sure if we publicly release that. We do have a schedule. I think Little Piney's actually, I probably shouldn't be saying this, but is coming up here in the next bit of time. But, you know, I'm not sure that that is something that our fisheries staff publicly release as to the schedule of our restocking. But yes, we do restock Little Piney, restock other stretches as well. And for certainly it's on an annual basis. But I need to know what I'm allowed to tell you related to schedule. Can I get back to you on that one too?
Yeah, we'll slap it in the newsletter and share it with everybody.
That's what I'm wondering. I'm like, can we, is that something that we release? I can just see me saying, yeah, here's a schedule, and my fisheries chief saying, what have you just done? But let me see if what we can share in the way of our restocking schedule.
Okay.
But the answer is yes, we do. At least
From the Little Piney, are you talking about in the trophy area or the downstream area from the trophy area?
That's a great question, Leo. And let me find out if I can get more specifics on the location as well.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't know if they stocked the trophy area or not. I don't fish that as often as I used to.
Do we restock, and where is that location? I'm going to get back to you on some of these questions. I probably should have had my fish chief on here to answer those questions, or to say, Sarah, we can't answer that. But I'll try to find out more specifically where that restocking is. I just know that the Little Piney is coming up, and that this is the time of year that we're doing some of that restocking effort.
While you're at it, maybe the Little Piney, that would be nice if it wasn't a white ribbon stream downstream. It's really pretty water, but boy, it's like fished out in a few weeks, and they stock some nice fish in there. But it'd be nice if it was extended the catcher, the trophy area.
I'm writing all of this down. Yeah, I mean, we heard, I will tell you, we talked about the crowds during COVID, and that certainly was a silver lining, but boy, did we hear from some of our folks who are regular attenders, maybe even folks on this call to the trout parks, that kind of the downside of that in seeing some of these first-time visitors to the trout parks who were not abiding by the zones, who were not demonstrating appropriate protocol for the trout parks. And so between the park rangers and our conservation agents, they had to spend a lot of time educating some of these first-time anglers to the trout parks on just what is expected, what the regulations are, what the zones allow and don't allow. And so with a lot of time first users come an opportunity to do additional education, but it was certainly felt, I know, and I saw it in our trout parks, stressed our hatchery folks out quite a bit, as you can imagine.
Okay, this one comes from Len Meyer. Why have you eliminated the first come, first serve option for camping at state parks, Bennett Spring and Montauk specifically? While I usually make a reservation, I sometimes get a wild hair and hook up the camper. This policy seems needlessly restrictive.
And Lynn, I'm going to have to send that one to my colleague at DNR State Parks because they run the camping areas at the trout parks. Now, I know obviously during COVID, of course, they shut down all of the camping area and the lodging for a period of time. And then I think, I'm just thinking through why they might have done the first come, first serve is because my guess would be they are still trying to limit numbers. I'm thinking of, for example, for us, it's the waterfowl draw, right? We're trying to figure out how do we still allow waterfowl hunters to use our waterfowl areas, but we don't want those crowded draw rooms that we have a lot of times with kind of the first come, first serve, or you're pulling cards. And so my guess would be for state parks, just to make sure that they are limiting their numbers, they're going to a reservation system just so that they know that they can limit those numbers. But that would be a question best directed at Department of Natural Resources, state parks. For those who are waterfowl hunters, though, we're doing the same thing of going to a reservation system. And depending on the local health ordinance, local health conditions, we're either going to a green, yellow, or red kind of level of restrictions. If it's red and the COVID numbers are high, then it's reservation only. You go directly to the site that's designated. If it's yellow, then there's still some contact in the draw office area, but we're trying to provide folks direct information on, where to hunt. And it's just in order to eliminate those crowds in the draw room. So I think we're all trying to figure out how do we still provide the outdoor opportunities, but limit risk to the public and to our staff.
All right. Our last question comes from our fly tyer, Mike Ott. Mike, I don't believe is on the call tonight, but I will read through his lengthy question here. As a club, we have always partnered with MDC on various education programs, fly tying classes, fly fishing classes, etc. Over the past several years, we've seen a marked decrease in our classes offered, classes promoted to the public, and consequently in attendance in our classes. Just 6 years ago, we had to limit our fly tying classes to 30 participants. The last classes we taught at Bush Wildlife had just 2 students. We see these classes as not only education for the fishing public, but also recruitment to outdoor sports for non-fishermen. In this age of online, virtual everything, what is MDC doing to promote outdoor sports participation, recruitment of future hunters and fishermen, and bringing more women to outdoor sports?
Well, I love that question. It's a great one. And I don't know the specific history of the reduction of fly tying classes in the Bush area, though I will ask about that. But we are, we have education staff, again, in all parts of the state. And they have a responsibility not only to the public schools and to private schools through our Discover Nature Schools program. And so we've got folks very focused on making the programming connection through curriculum and through programming to the schools, but also to the general public. And that does include a number of publicly offered programs at all of our nature centers and many of our conservation areas. So though I don't know the specific history of the fly tying classes at Bush, I can tell you that we're going to talk about COVID again, because that is the new reality. Of course, at the beginning of COVID, we were canceling a lot of our programming, but in pretty short order, our staff began turning around online programming, virtual programming. And that has really exploded. People have been signing up. We've been creating more content and really beginning to think about how we are using virtual programming to make those connections. Part of the new capacity that we've talked about in this relevancy branch does include, focus more on community conservation and making connections in Missouri's larger communities. And so I do think virtual programming, I think hunter education, if most of you may be familiar that there is a 100% virtual option to get your hunter ed certification now. Some states have gone 100% completely and not offered any in-person programming. We still offer the in-person option, but more and more of the folks are taking advantage of online hunter education. So just in the same way, I think we've already seen it in the last few months, trying to develop content as quickly as we can on the virtual end. People are responding to those virtual programs. I personally still think that there's benefit to face-to-face and direct contact, but in this COVID world, we are doing the best we can in that regard to make sure that we are offering content to a variety of Missourians. We are seeing such exponential growth in activities like birding. Birding is all of the craze. There's certainly folks who are hiking and camping and other things, but we're trying to offer the Missouri Birding Trail as an online program to connect people to where they can see birds and how they connect with other birders. And so we're always trying to find those ways to make connections, certainly for hunters and anglers, but also for non-consumptive users. In this age of kind of changing demographics as well, I think a neat program that is underway now in the St. Louis area that you all may be familiar with, referred to as the Green City Coalition, because City of St. Louis, well actually MSD, Metropolitan Sewer District, is under federal consent decree with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency on non-point source pollution issues. Part of that consent decree was to convert 1,000 abandoned paved over lots, most of them in North St. Louis, into green space. And so it certainly helps on the non-point source pollution issues. But for us and the many partners involved in the Green City Coalition, see this as a very unique opportunity to make connections with many underserved St. Louisans that may not otherwise have green space opportunities. And so we are working with a planning organization in St. Louis and a number of other partners to work with locals to say, what do you want this green space to look like? Do you want it to be an urban garden? Do you want it to be more of a park-like green space? And how can we make sure that it's also a safe place for people to connect to nature? And so a little different than traditionally maybe what the department would have been involved in, but as we see these changing demographics and as we see more and more Missourians raised in urban areas and not always have that connection to nature, it is an opportunity to make lemonade out of lemons and begin to make those green space connections, even in the heart of our urban areas. So we have a lot of programs going on, like the Localvore program, where we are working with local chefs, local restaurants to do field to table events and connect people that might like the local food movement. They may not hunt or fish themselves, but they're intrigued with how to prepare wild game or wild edibles. Those classes have been really, really popular. So we're trying a lot of different things. And we're seeing, especially like the field to table events, very, very popular in Kansas City and Springfield and Columbia, St. Louis as well. So we'll continue to expand our programming in order to reach our existing but also new audiences.
All right. Well, I will stop sharing the slideshow right now. We will sort of open it up to the floor. If you have a question, just raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can ask your question. Al, go ahead. Let's see if I can get you on mute.
This is
There you go.
Pauley. You mentioned just a few minutes ago the North Fork of the White River. As you know, a few years ago they had major flooding in that area, which really had a major impact on the trout fishery. Also, then they removed Doss Mill Dam, allowing stripers up into the water. A lot of the local people there feel that the stream is going to have a long time recovering. Is there anything the Conservation Department has on the books right now, or any projects they have to help that stream recover as a trout fishery?
We do have the folks in our Ozark region, our fisheries staff have been looking at the North Fork of the White. I will tell you, when I floated it a few weeks ago, I saw a whole lot of trout. Now, I had trouble catching them, but I saw a whole lot of trout. But that stretch of stream, I mean, you can see the damage as you're floating along. You can see where that water level was. And I know it had impacts on our hellbender population. And, I know on other aspects of aquatic habitat. But we do have a team in our Ozark region that has been assessing the damage, assessing hellbenders, trout, other fish populations. And I don't know where that report is, but I do know that a team has been assessing just where that stream health is. I'm just telling you from personal observation, there were a whole lot of trout. Non-catchable, but no. But yeah, very well aware of that flooding and the impact it had on our accesses. And that's the thing with infrastructure. I'm going to tell you a lot of examples right now where we have a particular access, and let's say I'm thinking of one particular access on the Gasconade, flooded and completely removed the ramp or destroyed the ramp 3 out of 5 years. So do we just keep putting it in the same place? Those are taxpayer dollars. Or do we determine if there's a better place to put it? Now, it irritates folks because it takes time to acquire land in a different place. And it takes time to get that project designed and built. But we are seeing more and more flooding, significant flooding events throughout our system. And we are being much more judicious in how we replace and making a determination of, is there a better spot on the stream or river to have a particular access site. But I can tell you about Northwest Missouri, just continual flooding and sedimentation issues up there. And it's having a real impact on our infrastructure.
Thank you.
Hi, Terry. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I wanted to make a comment. I think we as outdoor individuals appreciate the opportunities we have in the state of Missouri. And you and the other people on the Conservation Commission do an amazing job. And I'd like you to pass along that compliment. Oftentimes people hear the negative things, but they don't hear the positive. And I'll share another aspect. Every month when I get the Conservation Commission magazine, one of the first places I go is your upfront article. And I find it well written and down to earth, and you do an excellent job with that. So I want to pass along kudos to you, the entire Conservation Commission, for the outstanding job you do.
Terry, thank you very much for that. I will take that back. That is very much appreciated. That upfront column is about one of my favorite things to do every month. And I usually write about twice as long, and they edit it all away, but, but it's still a lot of fun. You know, somebody asked me recently, they said, boy, you get a lot of people who are mad at the department. They don't like the regulations. They're, you know, there's something that they're always grumbling about. And I said, yeah, that's true, but I will take a passionate citizenry who has strong opinions rather than an empathetic citizenry who doesn't care. You know what I mean? I mean, people, we're never going to get it just right. We're doing too much or too little or whatever, but it's because Missourians care about their fish and wildlife and their forests. They care about conservation. And so I'll take that passionate, the passion anytime over empathy. So thanks, Terry.
You're welcome.
So Sarah, we're always trying to fill our 10-page monthly newsletter. So please send us whatever you got. We'll print it.
All the stuff that gets
yeah, the director's cut. Any other questions from the membership tonight?
Yeah, I got one. Some states I know have reciprocative, whatever it is, where you can one state shares fishing with another state. Another license from Missouri and Illinois are both good. Is there any possibility of that happening in our states?
You know, I don't know necessarily about the reciprocity, but I think about the White River system and the fact that we do have a shared White River permit. And, you know, so are there opportunities along shared waterways? I think we can continually look at that. In fact, we are at the early stages of planning a joint Missouri-Arkansas kind of a border commission discussion about shared conservation priorities, and White River system is a great example of that. So there's certainly examples of, I think when we have a shared resource where we can look at a shared permit of sorts, but the reciprocity related to other licensing gets a bit tricky. But, you know, it's something that if you know, anytime you've got a concept like that and you want our regulations committee to consider it, send us a note or an email or come in person to regulations committee. And I think they're always willing to consider different things.
All right, guys, we have time for another question or two. Bob, you want to unmute yourself and go ahead? Oh, hang on, Bob. You're still on mute.
I've had the infamous double mute. I've had to.
Bob, let me, hang on, Bob. Bob, if you hold down your space bar, you should be off mute.
I think I should be off mute now. Can you hear me? Or?
Yes.
Yeah, a couple questions. Sarah, first of all, overall, as a 50-year hunter and fisherman in Missouri, I've seen a lot of good things happen. There's a few challenges. 1975, our club was part of the Merrimack Trout Management Area. Since then, Missouri Conservation has put in over 270,000 trout. When they do surveys in July, they show about 20 trout per mile. That's 150 trout, not a good investment. Fact of the matter is the hatchery trout do not survive. Is there any possibility that a private group, a fishing group like Ozark Fly Fishers can put in vibrant box brown, wild brown trout that are sustainable and create a fishery that is truly a wild fishery.
I'm writing this.
Time, dear, that's 45 years, 6,000 trout every October, 20 trout per mile, 150 fish by the time you hit July. The trout do not survive. We can do it at no cost with, of course, coordination with Missouri Department of Conservation, not around them, with their expressed permission and guidance.
Okay, well, Bob, I am taking notes down here, and that is an interesting request that I have not heard before, but I'm sure it's one that's been brought before our fisheries team before. So what can I ask what the response of the department has been in the past to that request?
Sarah, I've been asking it since 1985 when I was president of Ozarks, and they've had any number of responses. The fact of the matter is, created a fishery on the Little Red River down in Arkansas, a very successful fishery. I went to a wild trout symposium 2 years ago internationally. It's been used in former Yugoslavia. It's been used in Finland. It's been used in the Russian republics. It works. No cost. We can absorb the cost. Cost is about $3,000. I recently did it this May, again on the Little Red River down in Arkansas with vibrant box cutthroat trout, wild strain that survive.
And you said when you did it on the Little Red that you were part of a partnership that released.
Yeah, these are vibrant Bonneville cutthroat. We originally did it 1974, 1975 on the Little Red River down in Arkansas. They've had a brown trout fishery that has not had any hatchery fish since 1975. There was no hatchery fish put in. As another aside, you go down to Argentina, as I did last year, they dumped brown trout eggs in the Lemay River in Rio Grande, 1902. 120 years later, they have a phenomenal self-sustaining fishery. Curiously, the brown trout eggs were dumped down around the Rio Grande River on Terra del Fuego. I fished a river 2,000 miles away, the Lemay River, spectacular fishing. And again, it will cost the Conservation Commission nothing. We would ask that you've been stocking fish there for 45 years and they don't survive. Like the ruffed grouse. I was part of that group back in 1976 with Spence Turner. In fact, he conned me out of paying for the Ruffed Grouse Society tickets a few times that tried to get ruffed grouse in. This works. Wild strain browns. Again, all we're asking for is one river, say the Merrimack River.
Okay, I'm writing it down.
Sure.
I'll talk to our folks about that. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Thanks, Bob Heine. Let's go to Bob T now. Bob, you should be off mute. Go ahead.
Okay, well, they're not.
You're good.
Up until the COVID this year, the Natural Resource Conference has been an annual thing. Multidisciplinary people from all states all around the country attend. Fisheries, wildlife, the whole cross-sectional thing. I've been fortunate to go for the last 10 or 12 years. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for people to sit around a table and have a libation and share their experiences that you don't get in formal meetings. They have those too, but I'm hoping that when this does return, that the Conservation Department will continue its strong support and a lot of attendees that have the opportunity to go.
Thank you, Bob. And of course, that conference is hosted by the Wildlife Society and American Fisheries Society, but we certainly partner with them on that. I have not heard yet whether that's intending to go virtual or what's intending to happen there, but something that you all should be aware of is that we are, and you should be, Dan, on the list as an organization, but we're about to have the 4th annual Conservation Partners Roundtable, October 13 and 14, and it's going to be virtual. And Simon Roosevelt, great-great-grandson of Teddy Roosevelt, will be our keynote speaker. And we've got a great lineup of other speakers, including Colin O'Mara, who is the National Wildlife Federation Executive Director. There is some fantastic programming October 13, 14, virtually. If you want to know more about it, Dan, I'll send you the information. You guys should be on the list, and you can forward it out to your folks, but we'd sure love to have as many of you participate virtually as you can.
I like that.
Yeah, we can definitely spread the word on that.
Okay.
Any other questions from the members tonight as we wrap things up? All right, I don't see any hands. Dan, you want to close us out?
Yeah, thank you all for attending. Looks like we had maybe 25 at one point in time. It might have got a little higher. Hoping it would have been better than that, but hey, 25 is 25. Our next meeting is Thursday, the 22nd of October. Same place, same time, same everything. We'll send out the notes and everything. This worked out pretty good, I thought. Thank you so much for your help, Sarah. And normally we take you guys out fishing for one day, but that probably isn't going to happen. I'm sorry. But you are invited to join us at one of our outings, perhaps. So we'll work on that.
That sounds good. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks for your time. Thanks for what you do. Take care. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks everyone.